Dr. Randy Reed's heart races as he notices the curious gaze of Cora, a female Rakari, fixated on the bulge in his pants. The alien's vine-like appendages twitch with interest, her iridescent leaves rustling softly in the sterile examination room. "Human doctor, what is that protrusion between your legs?" Cora asks, her melodic voice tinged with genuine curiosity. Reed's face flushes as he realizes the cultural chasm he's stumbled into. The plant-based Rakari, with their spore reproduction, have no concept of internal genitalia. He opens his mouth to respond, but a sharp buzz from his communicator interrupts. "Dr. Reed, report to the command center immediately," the base commander's voice crackles through the device. "The Galactic Council has enacted new regulations. This is an emergency." Reed's stomach drops. He's only been on Rakar for a few days, and already his mission to study the enigmatic plant people is in jeopardy. As he hurries through the winding corridors of the research base, he can't shake the feeling that his interaction with Cora has triggered something far beyond a simple misunderstanding. The command center buzzes with tension as Reed enters. Holographic displays flicker with urgent messages from Earth and the Galactic Council. The base commander, a stern woman with graying hair, fixes Reed with a steely gaze. "Doctor, your examination of the Rakari female has raised concerns about potential interspecies relations," she says, her voice tight. "The Council has imposed strict regulations on human-Rakari interactions. Any impropriety could cost Earth its newly granted membership in the galactic community." Reed's mind reels. The weight of humanity's future in the galaxy now rests on his actions. He thinks of Cora, her alien beauty, and the scientific mysteries she represents. His curiosity wars with the enormous responsibility thrust upon him. As the commander briefs him on the new protocols, Reed notices a group of his fellow researchers huddled in the corner, their expressions dark and hostile. He recognizes them as members of a human supremacist faction on the base. Their leader, Dr. Vance, catches Reed's eye and smirks. Unease crawls up Reed's spine. He's heard whispers of the supremacist belief that interaction with aliens will weaken humanity. Now, with these new regulations, he realizes they have the perfect opportunity to sabotage the mission and frame him for violating the rules. The meeting concludes, and Reed hurries back to his lab, his mind racing. He needs to continue his research while navigating the political minefield he stumbled into. As he rounds a corner, he nearly collides with Cora. "Dr. Reed," she says, her leaf-like skin shimmering with excitement. "I've been thinking about our discussion. There's something I need to show you about our reproductive process. It could change everything." Reed hesitates, torn between scientific curiosity and the potential consequences of further interaction. Before he can respond, alarms blare throughout the base. Emergency lights bathe the corridor in a pulsing red glow. "Attention all personnel," the commander's voice booms over the intercom. "We have a security breach. All humans and Rakari are to report to designated safe zones immediately." Chaos erupts as researchers and aliens alike rush through the corridors. Reed grabs Cora's tendril-like hand, pulling her along as they run. He spots Dr. Vance and his supremacist cohorts moving against the crowd, their faces set with grim determination. As they reach a junction, Reed sees a group of Rakari elders approaching from another direction, their ancient eyes fixed on Cora with a mixture of anger and fear. The collision of species, ideologies, and personal desires converges on this moment, with Dr. Reed and Cora at the center of a storm that threatens to reshape the future of human-alien relations forever. Reed's grip tightened on Cora's tendril as they raced through the chaos-filled corridors. The blaring alarms and flashing red lights disoriented both human and Rakari alike, creating a surreal atmosphere of panic and confusion. "This way!" Reed shouted over the din, guiding Cora towards the command center. He needed answers, and Commander Steele was the only one who could provide them. As they approached the command center, Reed caught sight of Dr. Vance and his supremacist cohorts moving purposefully against the flow of panicked personnel. Their determined expressions sent a chill down his spine. "Dr. Reed," a voice called out. He turned to see Dr. Emily Chen, a fellow xenobiologist, waving frantically at him from a nearby doorway. "The commander needs you immediately. It's urgent." Reed hesitated, looking at Cora. Her leaf-like skin shimmered with anxiety, but she nodded in understanding. "Go," she said, her melodic voice barely audible above the alarm. "I'll find a safe place to wait." With a reluctant nod, Reed released Cora's tendril and sprinted towards the command center. The doors hissed open, revealing a scene of controlled chaos. Holographic displays flickered with data streams and security footage, while Commander Marcus Steele barked orders to his staff. Steele, a grizzled veteran with steel-gray hair and a perpetual scowl, turned as Reed entered. "Doctor, we have a situation," he growled, gesturing to the main screen. Reed's eyes widened as he took in the security footage. James Hawkins, the lead technician of the human supremacist group, was shown accessing the environmental control systems. As Reed watched, the temperature and humidity readings began to spike dramatically. "They've sabotaged the environmental controls," Steele explained, his voice tight with anger. "Temperature and humidity are rising rapidly. Do you understand what this means for the Rakari?" Reed's mind raced. "Their spore production," he breathed, the implications hitting him like a physical blow. "In these conditions, it could accelerate exponentially. We could be looking at an uncontrolled population explosion." Steele nodded grimly. "And that's not all. The Galactic Council is monitoring the situation. They're preparing to intervene, thinking we've lost control. If they do, Earth membership in the galactic community is as good as over." As if on cue, Reed felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back. The rising temperature was already becoming noticeable. He wiped his forehead, his mind working furiously to find a solution. Suddenly, the command center doors burst open. Cora stumbled in, her vine-like appendages quivering with excitement and fear. In her grasp was a stunning flower, its petals shimmering with an otherworldly iridescence. "Dr. Reed," she gasped, ignoring the shocked stares of the humans around her. "I had to come. This is what I wanted to show you about our reproduction. It's the key to everything." Before Reed could respond, alarms blared again. On the security feeds, they watched as James Hawkins and his group cornered a cluster of Rakari near the power core. The supremacists were armed, their intentions clear. "Damn it!" Steele snarled, reaching for his communicator. "Security teams, converge on the power core. Detain Hawkins and his people immediately." As Steele coordinated the response, Reed turned his attention to Cora and the mysterious flower. His scientific curiosity warred with the urgency of the situation. "Cora, what is this?" he asked, examining the flower closely. Its petals seemed to pulse with an inner light, and a sweet alien scent filled the air. "It's a rare bloom from our sacred groves," Cora explained, her voice filled with reverence. "It holds the secret to our advanced regenerative abilities, and—" she hesitated, her alien features contorting in what Reed recognized as embarrassment. "It's also the key to controlling our spore production." Reed's eyes widened as the pieces fell into place. "Of course," he exclaimed, turning to Commander Steele. "Sir, I think I know how to solve this crisis. This flower contains compounds that can neutralize the excess spores and stabilize the environment. If we can extract and synthesize it quickly enough, we might be able to prevent disaster." Steele's expression was skeptical, but he nodded sharply. "Do it, Doctor. You have full access to whatever resources you need, but make it quick. We're running out of time." Reed turned to Dr. Chen, who had been quietly observing the exchange. "Emily, I need your help. We need to set up a makeshift lab and begin extraction immediately." As they rushed to gather the necessary equipment, the base's systems began to falter under the strain of the rising heat and humidity. Lights flickered, and the air grew thick and oppressive. In the corridors outside, chaos reigned. Human researchers and Rakari alike struggled in the sweltering conditions, their movements becoming sluggish and uncoordinated. The air was filled with the soft patter of Rakari spores beginning to release prematurely. Reed, Cora, and Dr. Chen barricaded themselves in a small lab, working feverishly to extract the vital compounds from the Rakari flower. The heat was stifling, making it difficult to concentrate, but the urgency of their task drove them on. As they worked, Reed couldn't help but marvel at Cora's alien beauty. Her leaf-like skin glistened with moisture, and her movements were graceful despite the oppressive conditions. Their eyes met briefly, a moment of connection amidst the crisis. Outside the lab, they could hear the sounds of conflict. Commander Steele's security forces engaged with the human supremacists, their shouts and the occasional sound of energy weapons echoing through the corridors. James Hawkins's voice crackled over the base's intercom system, distorted but filled with fanatical fervor. "Attention, all humans! This is our chance to prove our superiority. We cannot allow these alien spores to contaminate our species. Stand with us against this threat." Reed gritted his teeth, focusing on the delicate process of synthesizing the spore-neutralizing compound. Time was running out, and the future of human-Rakari relations hung in the balance. As he worked, he could only hope that their efforts would be enough to save both species and preserve Earth's tenuous place in the galactic community. As he worked, he could only hope that their efforts would be enough to save both species and preserve Earth's tenuous place in the Galactic Alliance. The lab's atmosphere grew increasingly oppressive as Reed, Cora, and Dr. Chen toiled over their makeshift equipment. Sweat beaded on Reed's forehead, trickling down his face as he carefully measured out precise amounts of the flower's extract. Beside him, Cora's leaf-like skin glistened with moisture, the play of light across her surface captivating Reed's attention for a moment. "Focus, Doctor!" Dr. Chen's sharp voice cut through his distraction. "We're running out of time." Reed nodded, forcing his eyes back to the task at hand. As he worked, he couldn't help but notice the occasional brush of Cora's vine-like appendages against his arm, sending an electric tingle through his body. The close quarters and shared urgency of their mission only heightened the tension between them. Suddenly, the lab shook with a distant explosion. Alarms blared with renewed intensity, and the lights flickered ominously. "What was that?" Reed shouted over the cacophony. Dr. Chen rushed to a nearby console, her fingers flying over the controls. "It's coming from the power core," she reported, her voice tight with worry. "Commander Steele's team is engaging the supremacists." As if in response to the chaos, Cora let out a soft gasp. Reed turned to see small buds forming along her arms, tiny flowers blooming and wilting in rapid succession. "Cora, what's happening to you?" Reed asked, concern etched on his face. "The heat," she replied, her voice strained. "It's accelerating our growth cycle. We must hurry, Dr. Reed. My people won't be able to control themselves much longer." With renewed perseverance, they redoubled their efforts. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours as they refined the compound, testing and retesting to ensure its efficacy. Finally, Reed held up a vial of shimmering liquid. "This is it," he announced. "We've done it." Their moment of triumph was short-lived. Dr. Chen's console beeped urgently, drawing their attention. "We have another problem," she said, her face pale. "The Galactic Council is preparing to intervene. They're sending a team to quarantine the entire base." Reed's stomach dropped. "If they do that, we'll lose everything. Earth's membership, our research, possibly even our lives. We need to get this compound into the base's air circulation system," Cora interjected. "It's the only way to distribute it quickly enough." Reed nodded grimly. "The environmental controls were damaged in the fighting. We'll have to do it manually." As they prepared to leave the lab, Dr. Chen grabbed Reed's arm. "I'll try to warn Commander Steele about the Council. You two get that compound released." Reed and Cora stepped out into the corridor, immediately assaulted by the sweltering heat and chaos. Alarms continued to blare, and the air was thick with humidity and the soft patter of Rakari spores. They had only gone a few steps when a group of Rakari rounded the corner, led by a tall, imposing figure Reed recognized as Elder Zax. The alien's eyes narrowed as they fell on Cora. "What have you done?" Elder Zax demanded, his voice a low rumble. "Why have you brought outsiders to our sacred reproductive site?" Cora stepped forward, her posture defiant despite the continued sprouting of buds along her form. "Elder, please listen. These humans are trying to help us. They've created a compound that can stabilize our spore production and prevent a catastrophe." Before the Elder could respond, a figure burst from a side corridor, barreling into Reed and sending the vial of compound flying from his grasp. James Hawkins, his face twisted with hate, snatched the vial from the air. "I won't let you contaminate humanity with this alien filth," Hawkins snarled, turning to run. Without hesitation, Reed gave chase, Cora close behind. They pursued Hawkins through the winding corridors of the base, dodging panicked researchers and equipment strewn about in the chaos. As they ran, Reed noticed Cora's body continuing to change. Her vine-like limbs extended, allowing her to navigate obstacles with startling agility. Despite the dire situation, Reed couldn't help but marvel at her alien grace. Their pursuit led them to the heart of the base, where the environmental control systems hummed with strained effort. Hawkins slipped through a partially sealed door, slamming it shut behind him. Reed pounded on the door in frustration. "He's barricaded himself in the control room," he panted, turning to Cora. "We need to find another way in." Cora's eyes scanned the area, settling on a narrow ventilation shaft. "I might be able to reach him through there," she said, her newly elongated limbs twisting experimentally. Reed hesitated, acutely aware of the risks. The shaft would be filled with a concentrated mixture of human and Rakari pheromones, potentially causing further mutations in Cora's rapidly changing physiology. "It's dangerous, Cora. We don't know how it might affect you," Reed warned, his voice tight with concern. Cora's alien features softened, a look Reed was beginning to recognize as affection. "We have no choice, Dr. Reed. The fate of both our peoples hangs in the balance." As Cora prepared to enter the shaft, Commander Steele's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention all personnel. The Galactic Council Intervention Team has entered orbit. We are initiating lockdown procedures. Stand by for further instructions." Reed and Cora exchanged a look of steadfast perseverance. Time was running out. With a nod of understanding, Cora began to squeeze her flexible form into the narrow opening, the vial of compound clutched tightly in her grasp. As Reed watched her disappear into the darkness, he couldn't shake the feeling that whatever happened next would forever change the course of human-Rakari relations, and his own life as well. As Reed watched Cora disappear into the darkness of the ventilation shaft, he activated his communicator, establishing a link with her biosensor. "Cora, can you hear me?" he asked, his voice tense. "Yes, Dr. Reed," came her muffled reply. "The air in here, it's thick with pheromones. I can feel my body changing." Reed's heart raced as he monitored Cora's vital signs on his handheld device. Her physiology was fluctuating rapidly, adapting to the intense concentration of Rakari spores and human pheromones. "Stay focused, Cora," he urged. "Follow my directions." As he guided her through the labyrinth of ducts, Reed noticed his own senses sharpening. The base's alarm seemed louder, the flickering lights more intense. He shook his head, trying to clear the fog of heightened awareness. Suddenly, Cora's voice crackled through the communicator. "I've reached the central air circulation unit, but—" "Dr. Reed, Hawkins is here." Reed's stomach dropped. "Be careful, Cora. Remember, we need that compound released into the air system." The sounds of struggle echoed through the comlink. Reed pressed his ear to the ventilation shaft, straining to hear what was happening. There was a loud crash, followed by the sound of shattering glass. "No!" Cora's cry rang out, followed by a hissing noise. Reed's eyes widened as he realized what had happened. "Cora, report. Did the compound release?" "Yes," she gasped. "But not as we planned. It's everywhere." As if on cue, a sweet alien scent began to permeate the air around Reed. He felt a tingling sensation spread across his skin, his muscles tensing and relaxing in rapid succession. "Cora, get out of there now!" he commanded, his voice husky and unfamiliar to his own ears. As Reed waited anxiously by the vent opening, he became aware of a commotion down the corridor. Commander Steele and Elder Zax were approaching, surrounded by a mix of human and Rakari personnel. "Dr. Reed," Steele called out, his usual gruff demeanor softened by concern. "What's the situation?" Before Reed could respond, the vent cover burst open. Cora emerged, her body transformed. Her vine-like limbs had elongated further, and her skin emitted a soft, pulsating glow. Reed found himself transfixed by her alien beauty. "The compound has been released," Cora announced, her eyes locking with Reed's. "But the concentration is far higher than we anticipated." Elder Zax stepped forward, his towering form radiating authority. "What does this mean for our people?" Dr. Chen, who had joined the group, quickly accessed a nearby terminal. "The good news is that the Rakari spore levels are dropping rapidly," she reported. "But the pheromone concentration is off the charts. It's affecting both species in ways we couldn't have predicted. As if to illustrate her point, Reed suddenly found himself hyper-aware of every sensation. The hum of the base's systems, the subtle shifts in air current, even the faint electrical charge emanating from the equipment around them. All of it was crystal clear. Steele's communicator crackled to life. "Commander," a voice reported, "the human supremacists. They're standing down. Hawkins just surrendered himself." A wave of relief washed over the group, but it was short-lived. The intercom system buzzed with an incoming transmission. "Attention Rakar Research Base," an authoritative voice announced. "This is Captain Lyrax of the Galactic Council Intervention Team. We are preparing to initiate quarantine procedures. Stand by for further instructions." Steele and Elder Zax exchanged a look of commitment. "We need to stall them," Steele said. "Give us time to assess the situation." As the two leaders moved to coordinate their response, Reed found himself drawn to Cora. The air between them seemed to crackle with energy. "Dr. Reed," Cora said softly, her luminescent skin pulsing in rhythm with her words. "I feel different, stronger, more connected to everything around me." Reed nodded, his own body humming with newfound energy. "I feel it too. It's like all my senses have been dialed up to 11. Dr. Chen approached them, her eyes wide with excitement and trepidation. "I think we've stumbled onto something unprecedented," she said. "The compound, combined with the intense pheromone exposure, seems to be facilitating some kind of bonding process between compatible humans and Rakari." As if to underscore her words, Reed felt an irresistible pull towards Cora. Their eyes met, and in that moment, he understood her thoughts and feelings as clearly as if they were his own. "We need to study this," Reed said, his scientific curiosity warring with the intense emotions flooding his system. "The implications for interspecies relations could be enormous." Cora nodded, her vine-like appendages gently brushing against Reed's arm. "Yes, but we must be cautious. These changes, they're profound. We don't yet understand the long-term effects." As they spoke, more humans and Rakari began to filter into the area, drawn by the lingering pheromones. Reed observed with fascination as members of both species gravitated towards one another, their usual barriers of mistrust and misunderstanding seeming to melt away. Steele and Elder Zax returned, their faces etched with both concern and hope. "The Council has agreed to postpone their intervention," Steele announced. "They're sending a team of scientific observers instead." Elder Zax's alien features shifted into what Reed recognized as a smile. "This crisis has shown us the potential of our two species working together. I believe it is time we shared more of our botanical knowledge with our human friends." As the immediate danger passed and the base began to stabilize, Reed found himself facing a new set of challenges. The lingering effects of the pheromone exposure continued to alter both human and Rakari physiology in subtle but significant ways. "Dr. Reed," Dr. Chen called out, her voice urgent, "we need to set up a comprehensive monitoring system. These changes, they're not stopping. We need to understand what's happening before it becomes irreversible." Reed nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. He turned to Cora, their newfound connection humming between them like a living thing. "We have work to do," he said, his voice filled with dedication and a hint of excitement. "Are you ready to make history?" Cora's luminescent skin pulsed brightly in response. "Together," she said, her vine-like limbs intertwining with Reed's fingers. "I believe we can achieve anything." As they set off towards the research labs, Reed couldn't shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of a new era, one that would challenge everything they thought they knew about biology, culture, and the very nature of human-alien relations. As they walked towards the research labs, Reed felt a sudden wave of dizziness wash over him. He stumbled, catching himself against the wall. "Dr. Reed!" Cora exclaimed, her vine-like appendages reaching out to steady him. "Are you all right?" Reed blinked, his vision swimming. "I'm not sure. Everything feels different." Dr. Chen rushed over, her handheld scanner already active. "Your vitals are fluctuating rapidly," she reported, her brow furrowed. "We need to get you both to the medbay immediately." As they made their way to the medical facilities, Reed became acutely aware of changes happening within his body. His skin tingled, and he felt an inexplicable urge to be near sunlight. In the medbay, Dr. Chen and her team worked tirelessly, running tests on both Reed and Cora. Hours passed as they analyzed the data, the tension in the room growing with each new discovery. Finally, Dr. Chen approached them, her eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. "We've found something extraordinary," she began. "Dr. Reed, your body has begun producing chlorophyll. You're developing the ability to photosynthesize." Reed stared at her in disbelief. "That's impossible." "Not only that," Dr. Chen continued, turning to Cora, "but Cora's physiology is changing as well. Her body is producing mammalian hormones. It's as if you're both adapting to each other on a cellular level." Cora's luminescent skin pulsed rapidly. "I can feel it," she said softly. "It's like a part of Dr. Reed is always with me now." Over the next few days, Reed and Cora underwent extensive testing. They discovered that their newfound bond strengthened when they were in close proximity, leading to accelerated healing and enhanced cognitive functions for both of them. As word of their condition spread, tensions began to rise within the base. The Galactic Council's scientific observers, initially intrigued by the developments, soon began pushing for more invasive studies. "We need to understand the full extent of these changes," insisted Dr. Lyra, the lead council scientist. "More comprehensive tests are required." Commander Steele stood firm. "I won't allow any experiments that could harm my crew or our Rakari allies," he stated, his voice leaving no room for argument. As the debate raged on, Elder Zax approached Reed and Cora, his expression grave. "There may be a way to stabilize your condition," he said, his voice low. "Our people have an ancient bonding ceremony. It involves a deep, intimate connection that could fully merge your biologies." Reed's eyes widened. "A ceremony between different species? Has that ever been done before?" Elder Zax shook his head. "Never, but these are unprecedented times." The proposal sent shockwaves through the base. Humans and Rakari alike were divided on the issue. Some saw it as a momentous step towards interspecies cooperation, while others viewed it as a violation of natural order. To everyone's surprise, James Hawkins emerged as an unlikely advocate for the ceremony. The former human supremacist had undergone a profound change of heart since his exposure to the compound. "This is the next step in human evolution," Hawkins argued passionately during a base-wide meeting. "We can't turn our backs on this opportunity." As preparations for the ceremony began, Reed and Cora faced personal challenges. The intensity of their bond made it increasingly difficult for them to be apart, affecting their ability to work objectively. "Cora," Reed said one evening, as they sat in the base's arboretum, surrounded by a mix of earth and Rakari plant life, "are we doing the right thing? This bond, it's changing us in ways we can't fully understand." Cora's vine-like fingers intertwined with his. "I don't know if it's right," she replied, her skin pulsing softly. "But I know it feels right. We have a chance to bridge the gap between our species in a way no one ever has before." Their moment of peace was shattered by the blaring of alarms. Commander Steele's voice came over the intercom, tense and urgent. "Attention all personnel. We have a situation. Someone has released a powerful plant growth hormone into the base's water supply. All plant life is growing at an exponential rate. This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill." Reed and Cora rushed from the arboretum, only to find the corridors already choked with rapidly growing vines and foliage. The base was quickly being overrun. As they fought their way through the expanding greenery, Reed felt a strange sensation. He could sense the plants around him, almost as if he could hear their thoughts. "Cora," he gasped, "I think I can communicate with them." Focusing his mind, Reed reached out to the plants, willing them to slow their growth. To his amazement, the vines nearest to him began to retreat. Cora's eyes widened in understanding. "Our bond," she said, "it's allowing you to tap into my people's connection with plant life." Working in tandem, Reed and Cora moved through the base containing the uncontrolled growth and protecting the human inhabitants. Their synchronized efforts were a powerful demonstration of what the human-Rakari bond could achieve. As they neared the ceremonial chamber where their bonding ritual was to take place, Commander Steele's voice once again came over the intercom. "Dr. Reed, Cora, we have a situation. A Galactic Council ship has just entered orbit. They're demanding we halt all human Rakari interactions immediately." Reed and Cora exchanged a look of commitment. They stood at the threshold of the ceremonial chamber, the base around them a controlled chaos of overgrown plants and scrambling personnel. "What do we do?" Cora asked, her vine-like appendages curling anxiously. Reed took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. "We have a choice to make," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil around them. "Whatever we decide, it's going to change everything." As they stood there, poised on the brink of a decision that would alter the course of interspecies relations, the future of both their peoples hung in the balance. The ceremony chamber door stood open before them, an invitation and a challenge. Behind them, the sounds of the struggling base and the looming threat of the Galactic Council ship created a backdrop of urgency. With time running out and the consequences of their choice echoing across the galaxy, Reed and Cora faced the most important decision of their lives. With a shared look of dedication, Reed and Cora stepped into the ceremonial chamber. As the door sealed behind them, the base's communication system crackled to life. Commander Steele's voice echoed through the facility, tension evident in his tone. "Attention, all personnel. The Galactic Council ship has begun its descent. We have minutes, not hours." Reed's heart raced as he locked eyes with Cora. "We have to do this now," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Cora nodded, her luminescent skin pulsing rapidly. "Whatever happens, we face it together." Elder Zax materialized from the shadows of the chamber, his alien features set in a solemn expression. "Are you prepared to undergo the bonding?" he asked, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of tradition. "We are," Reed and Cora responded in unison. The ceremony began with Elder Zax's low, melodic chanting. As he guided them through the ancient Rakari rituals, Reed felt the bond between him and Cora intensify. It was as if every cell in his body was reaching out, yearning to connect with hers. Reed's skin tingled, and he watched in fascination as the patches of chlorophyll-infused flesh began to expand. The green hue spread across his arms and chest, a living testament to the changes occurring within him. Beside him, Cora's plant-like structure shifted and morphed, her form becoming more humanoid with each passing moment. The air around them filled with a soft, bioluminescent glow, their combined pheromones creating a visible aura. Reed's senses sharpened, and he became acutely aware of every sound, every scent in the chamber. Outside, the base hummed with activity. Commander Steele barked orders to his security team, positioning them strategically throughout the facility. In the research lab, Dr. Chen's fingers flew across her keyboard, compiling every scrap of data on the human-Rakari bonding process. As the ceremony reached its peak, something unexpected occurred. The overgrown plant life throughout the base began to pulse in sync with Reed and Cora's biorhythms. The vines and foliage that had threatened to overwhelm the facility now moved with purpose, as if guided by an unseen hand. Reed felt a surge of energy course through him, and he gasped as his consciousness expanded. He could sense the plants, feel their life force intertwining with his own. Beside him, Cora trembled, her eyes wide with wonder. "Reed," she breathed, "I can feel everything." Their bodies began to glow brighter, the light pulsing in time with their shared heartbeat. Reed felt his form shifting, merging with Cora's in ways he couldn't comprehend. Pain and pleasure intermingled as their very cellular structures realigned. In a blinding flash, their separate forms dissolved, coalescing into a single hybrid being. This new entity stood tall, its body a perfect blend of human and Rakari features. Chlorophyll-rich skin covered a muscular frame, while vine-like appendages moved with grace and purpose. The hybrid being opened its eyes, taking in the world with newfound clarity. Its mind raced with the combined knowledge and experiences of both Reed and Cora, processing information at an unprecedented rate. Instinctively, the being reached out with its mind, connecting with the plant life infesting the base. With a mere thought, it began to reshape the overgrowth, transforming the chaotic tangle into a harmonious ecosystem. The chamber door slid open, and Commander Steele stumbled in, his eyes widening at the sight before him. "My God," he whispered, "what have you become?" The hybrid being turned, its gaze piercing, yet somehow comforting. When it spoke, its voice was a melodious blend of Reed and Cora's tones. "We are the bridge," it said, "the living proof of what our species can achieve together." Steele's communicator crackled to life. "Commander," a voice reported, "the Galactic Council ship is holding position above us. They're requesting permission to send a delegation." The hybrid being smiled, a gesture both familiar and alien. "Invite them," it said. "It's time for a new era of understanding." As word spread throughout the base, humans and Rakari alike gathered to witness the emergence of this new life form. The hybrid being moved through the corridors, its every step leaving a trail of vibrant, controlled plant growth in its wake. James Hawkins pushed his way through the crowd, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. As he approached the hybrid being, he felt a wave of energy wash over him. In that moment, he glimpsed the unified consciousness of Reed and Cora, and his worldview shattered. The being reached out, touching Hawkins' forehead gently. "See with new eyes," it said, its voice resonating in Hawkins' mind. As the Galactic Council delegation prepared to descend, the hybrid being turned its attention to the Rakari population on the planet's surface. It sent out a mental call, a beacon of unity that transcended physical boundaries. Across Rakari individuals suddenly found themselves experiencing visions of harmony and cooperation with humans. Centuries of isolationist policies began to crumble in the face of this newfound connection. The hybrid being stood at the center of the base's main atrium, surrounded by a mix of awestruck humans, curious Rakari, and the newly arrived Galactic Council representatives. It raised its hands, commanding attention without a word. "What you see before you is temporary," the being announced, its voice carrying effortlessly through the space. "But its effects will endure. When we separate, Reed and Cora will retain aspects of each other's biology. They will be living bridges between our species, the first of many." As it spoke, the hybrid being's form began to shimmer, the first signs of separation becoming visible. The assembled crowd watched in silent anticipation, knowing they were witnessing the dawn of a new age in interspecies relations. The separation process began, Reed and Cora's individual forms slowly re-emerging from the hybrid entity. As their consciousnesses disentangled, both felt a profound sense of loss, tempered by the knowledge that a part of each would always remain with the other. The Galactic Council representatives huddled together, furiously discussing the implications of what they had witnessed. The leader of the delegation, a tall, multi-limbed being, stepped forward. "We must convene an emergency session," it announced. This changes everything." As Reed and Cora's separate forms solidified, the plants throughout the base pulsed one final time, before settling into a new symbiotic relationship with the facility's technology. The crisis of unchecked growth had been averted, replaced by a bio-integrated system that hummed with potential. Reed blinked, his vision clearing as he took in his surroundings. His skin still bore patches of chlorophyll, and he could feel a new awareness of the plant life around him. Beside him, Cora stood on two legs, her once entirely plant-like body now displaying distinctly human characteristics. Their eyes met, and in that moment they understood that their journey was not nearly finished. The bond they shared had been irrevocably altered, strengthened in ways they had yet to fully comprehend. As the base buzzed with activity around them, Reed and Cora knew that they stood at the threshold of a new chapter in human-Rakari relations, one that would reshape the very fabric of galactic society. As the separation process completed, Reed and Cora stumbled apart, their individual forms solidifying. Reed blinked rapidly, adjusting to his restored vision. He looked down at his arms, marveling at the patches of green, chlorophyll-rich skin that now adorned his body. Beside him, Cora stood on two legs, her once entirely plant-like form now displaying distinctly human characteristics. "How do you feel?" Reed asked, his voice hoarse. Cora flexed her new fingers, a look of wonder on her face. "Different, stronger. I can feel a pulse." Commander Steele approached them, his expression a mix of awe and concern. Dr. Reed, Cora, we need you for an immediate conference. The Galactic Council representatives want to discuss, well, everything that just happened. As they followed Steele to the base's main conference room, Reed noticed the way the remaining plant life seemed to reach out towards them, responding to their presence. The corridors were a blend of sleek human technology and vibrant Rakari flora, a visual representation of the union they had just experienced. In the conference room, Elder Zax and the Galactic Council delegation were already seated. The lead representative, a tall, multi-limbed being, stood as they entered. Dr. Reed, Cora, it said, its voice a melodious hum. What we have witnessed today is nothing short of revolutionary. We propose the establishment of a joint human Rakari research colony on a nearby uninhabited planet. This would allow us to study the long-term effects of your bonding and its potential applications across the galaxy. Commander Steele leaned forward, his interest piqued. A new colony? That's a significant undertaking. One that could reshape interspecies relations forever, Elder Zax added, his alien features set in a solemn expression. Reed and Cora exchanged a glance, their newly intensified bond allowing them to communicate without words. They both nodded. We're in, Reed said, whatever it takes to further this research and promote understanding between our species. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Commander Steele took charge of the mission, assembling a team of human scientists and military personnel. Elder Zax selected a group of willing Rakari participants, each eager to explore the possibilities of closer human-Rakari relations. Dr. Emily Chen was appointed as the lead researcher for the human contingent. Reed found her in the lab, surrounded by holographic displays of his and Cora's new biology. The changes are remarkable, Chen said, manipulating a 3D model of Reed's cellular structure. Your skin isn't just mimicking chlorophyll, it's actually photosynthesizing. And Cora's new circulatory system, it's like nothing we've ever seen before. As preparations for the colony continued, an unexpected volunteer stepped forward, James Hawkins. Reed was surprised to see the former human supremacist approach him in the base's mess hall. Dr. Reed, Hawkins said, his voice low and hesitant, I want to join the colony mission. Reed studied the man's face, remembering the profound change he had witnessed during their encounter with the hybrid being. Are you sure, Hawkins? It won't be easy. Hawkins nodded firmly. I need to do this. What I experienced, it changed everything. I want to be part of building this new future. With Reed's endorsement, Hawkins was cautiously accepted into the program and assigned to assist with the colony's agricultural development. As the departure date approached, the Galactic Council dispatched a team of their most esteemed xenobiologists to join the mission. Their arrival brought a flood of advanced medical equipment and expertise to the base. Finally, after months of preparation, the colonization fleet lifted off from Rakar. Reed and Cora stood at a viewport, watching as the planet's surface receded. Nervous? Reed asked, feeling Cora's anxiety through their bond. She smiled, her newly formed lips curving in a gesture that was both alien and familiar. Excited. This is the beginning of something incredible, Reed. I can feel it. The journey to the new planet, christened Symbiosa by unanimous vote, took several weeks. As they approached their destination, Reed and Cora's connection continued to evolve. They discovered they could communicate telepathically over short distances and even share sensory experiences. The fleet touched down on Symbiosa's surface, and the work of establishing the colony began in earnest. As the first structures rose from the alien soil, Reed and Cora found themselves at the center of a scientific maelstrom. Their bodies were constantly monitored, tested, and analyzed as they adapted to their new home. The effects of their hybrid biology on Symbiosa's ecosystem became apparent almost immediately. Plants grew at accelerated rates in their presence, and the native fauna displayed an unusual affinity for the settlers. Reed often found himself surrounded by curious alien creatures, drawn to the unique energy he and Cora emitted. One morning, as Reed was helping to set up a new hydroponics bay, an alarm blared across the colony. He rushed outside to find Cora already organizing a response team. It's some kind of fungal outbreak, she explained, her vine-like appendages writhing with agitation. It's spreading rapidly, threatening our crops and structures? Reed nodded, his mind already racing with possibilities. We need to synthesize a countermeasure, something that combines human antibodies with Rakari growth hormones. Working together, Reed and Cora led a team of human and Rakari scientists in developing a treatment. Their unique biology and shared knowledge proved invaluable as they raced against time to save the colony. After days of tireless work, they emerged from the lab with a solution. Reed held up a vial of iridescent liquid, a triumphant smile on his face. "This should do it," he said. "Let's save our new home." As they prepared to deploy the treatment, news arrived that delegations from other alien species were en route to Symbiosa, drawn by reports of the colony's groundbreaking work. The success or failure of their fungal countermeasure would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the colony, but for the future of interspecies collaboration across the galaxy. Reed and Cora stood at the edge of the affected area, ready to release their creation into Symbiosa's atmosphere. As they activated the dispersal device, Reed felt a surge of hope and perseverance. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, bridging the gap between their species and forging a new path for all. The galaxy. As they released the treatment into Symbiosa's atmosphere, Reed and Cora watched with anxious anticipation, hoping their creation would save their new home. Months passed, and the fungal outbreak was successfully contained. The colony thrived, growing into a bustling hub of interspecies, collaboration, and scientific advancement. Reed and Cora's unique bond deepened, their shared experiences forging an unbreakable connection between them. One evening, as they walked through the colony's central garden, Cora suddenly stopped, her hand moving to her abdomen. Reed felt a surge of emotion through their telepathic link. "Reed," she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. I think I'm pregnant." The news spread quickly through the colony, eliciting a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The first natural-born human-Rakari hybrid was on its way, and no one quite knew what to expect. Dr. Emily Chen immediately took charge of Cora's prenatal care, assembling a team of the best xenobiologists and medical experts from across the galaxy. As Cora's pregnancy progressed, her plant-like body adapted in remarkable ways. Bioluminescent patterns danced across her skin, responding to the developing child within. Reed found that his enhanced biology allowed him to sense the baby's growth, forming a unique paternal bond. He often spent hours with his hand on Cora's abdomen, marveling at the tiny life they had created together. The colony buzzed with activity as the due date approached. Delegations from various alien species arrived, eager to witness this unprecedented event. Even James Hawkins, now fully committed to the colony's mission, found himself caught up in the excitement. The day of the birth arrived, and the colony's medical facility was transformed into a hive of activity. Dr. Chen led her diverse team of human, Rakari, and alien specialists, all ready to assist with the delivery. As Cora's labor began, Reed stood by her side, their hands intertwined. The colony's plant life seemed to pulse in rhythm with her contractions, creating a surreal atmosphere throughout Symbiosa. Hours passed, filled with intense effort and moments of uncertainty. Reed remained a constant presence, offering support and drawing strength from their shared bond. Finally, with one last push, Cora gave birth to their child. The room fell silent as Dr. Chen carefully cleaned and examined the infant. When she turned to present the baby to its parents, her face was filled with awe. "Congratulations," she said softly. "You have a healthy hybrid child." Reed and Cora gazed at their baby, a perfect blend of human and Rakari features. The infant had soft, chlorophyll-infused skin and delicate vine-like hair. When the baby opened its eyes, they revealed irises with a mesmerizing, swirling pattern of green and brown. As news of the successful birth spread, celebrations erupted throughout the colony. The Galactic Council representatives present wasted no time in officially recognizing the child as a new sentient species, granting it protected status and full rights within the galactic community. In the weeks that followed, Reed and Cora discovered that their child possessed extraordinary abilities. The infant demonstrated accelerated growth and cognitive development, showing signs of telepathic communication with both parents and an innate ability to influence the plant life around them. One afternoon, as Reed cradled the baby in the colony's arboretum, he noticed the nearby plants swaying gently, despite the lack of wind. The child gurgled happily, tiny hands reaching out towards the foliage. Suddenly, a nearby flower bud burst into bloom, its petals unfurling in a matter of seconds. "Cora!" Reed called out, his voice filled with excitement. "Come quick!" As Cora hurried over, they watched in amazement as their child caused more plants to grow and bloom at an accelerated rate. The implications of this ability were staggering, and Reed knew it would open up new avenues of research and potential applications across the galaxy. James Hawkins, who had been observing from a distance, approached the family with a look of willpower on his face. "Dr. Reed, Cora," he began, his voice filled with emotion. "I know I haven't always been supportive of interspecies cooperation, but seeing your child, witnessing this miracle, I want to be a part of it. If you'll have me, I'd be honored to be the child's godfather." Reed and Cora exchanged a glance, their telepathic bond allowing them to communicate silently. After a moment, they both nodded. "We'd be honored, James," Reed said, extending his hand. As Hawkins shook Reed's hand and gently touched the baby's forehead, the gravity of the moment wasn't lost on any of them. This child represented not just the union of two individuals or even two species, but a new hope for the entire galaxy. In the following months, researchers on Symbiosa made breakthrough after breakthrough. Cells from the hybrid child were used to create powerful new medicines and revolutionary terraforming techniques. The success of the human-Rakari partnership inspired other species to explore cross-species collaboration, with Symbiosa serving as a model for similar projects throughout the galaxy. 5 years passed in a blur of scientific advancements and cultural exchange. The once small colony had grown into a thriving metropolis, a testament to the power of cooperation and shared vision. Reed and Cora stood at the heart of this diverse community, watching their child play with friends of various species in the Central Park. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over Symbiosa, Reed turned to Cora, his eyes filled with love and wonder. "Did you ever imagine, back when we first met, that we'd end up here?" he asked. Cora's plant-like features shifted into a smile. "No," she admitted, "but I'm grateful for every step of the journey." Their child ran up to them, eyes shining with excitement. "Mama, Papa, can we go see the stars tonight?" Reed and Cora exchanged a knowing look. Their family's journey, like that of their new, blended species, was only just beginning. As they walked hand in hand towards the colony's observatory, the bioluminescent glow of their child's skin mingled with the soft light of distant stars, a beacon of hope for the entire galaxy.
If you finished this story, please subscribe and like the video. Then leave a comment that says, "I liked the story," and I will heart every single one of them. It really helps me. Thank you for your time.